There is a significant difference between classical and modern Qigong methods. Unlike classical Qigong methods, which date back thousands of years, the development of modern Qigong practice started in the 1950s. It has a relatively short history and is still in its initial stage of development. Now, please keep in mind that though the research into Qigong is still in its infancy, a substantial amount is already published in peer-reviewed medical journals. Both scientists and scholars recognize the modern study of ancient Qigong methods. The focus and scale of modern research on Qigong are directly related to its popularity and revitalization in the 20th century. Since the 1950s, scientific research on Qigong has gone through three distinct stages. From the mid-1950s to the mid-1960s, from the late 1970s into the late 1990s, and from the year 2000 to the present day. From the mid-1950s to the mid-1960s, the research on Qigong was primarily conducted in the area of healthcare. It focused on observing the healing effects of Qigong by Qigong practitioners and by measuring precise physiological processes such as heart rate, blood pressure, and lung capacity. This medical analysis in Qigong led to an increase in the number of people practicing it. This time frame is considered the first stage of the revitalization of Qigong in the modern world. In the 1950s, Qigong became more widely recognized and taught as one of the core pillars in the creation of systematized traditional Chinese medicine, sometimes referred to as TCM. Qigong caught the public's interest because of its observed therapeutic effects in alleviating various chronic illnesses without using medication. Therefore, researchers began an observational study on Qigong's clinical impact using modern scientific techniques and approaches. Research steadily expanded from observation of single case studies or small groups to reviews of thousands of cases that produced statistically significant results. Scientists researched Qigong treatment for a variety of diseases during this time. Research included indications of circulatory markers like arterial blood pressure, heart rate changes, skin temperature, the permeability of blood vessels, and more. Research on digestive functions included gastrointestinal peristalsis, gastric secretion, and saliva secretion. There was even research on Qigong's impact on endocrine function involving steroid production and blood sugar maintenance. Scientists performed additional research on Qigong from the late 1970s into the late 1990s. This investigation led to the second stage of interest in Qigong. It also led to the development of different Qigong methods and forms. Most people don't realize this, but early research on Qigong focused on static seated meditation. Now, this limitation was for controlling the variables associated with research. The expansion into newer methods and techniques often involved forms of movement, such as those with practices like Tai Chi Chuan. The integration of dynamic movements from the body and the limbs combined with a meditative Qigong mind state brought about larger group practices involving many people, all practicing at once. In the 1980s, an increased interest in applying externally emitted qi, where a practitioner transmits qi to a patient, accompanied increased medical Qigong applications for research. From 2000 to the present day, we saw the standardized management of Qigong in China. Now, this marked a major turning point in the history of Qigong, because the center gathered experts and scholars to combine and compile a lot of research on Qigong. Research projects from this era at the end of the 20th century have continued. These projects include functional MRI studies of brain activity while practicing Qigong, studying Qigong's mechanism and clinical impact on respiratory physiology, and how Qigong practice can alleviate things like depression and anxiety. Increasing research into Qigong will surely bring about a steady development in modern research. We have reason to believe that modern science will one day solve some of Qigong's deep mysteries, but probably not all of them. And that's where we come into classical Qigong, because classical Qigong practices differ substantially from modern scientific developed Qigong. When it comes to classical Qigong, these methods are based on Taoist medical theories and classical Chinese philosophy. You can see these connections in Red Dragon Qigong regarding grand circulation breathing, the specific postures used to promote energy circulation in the traditionally defined meridians, and the alternation between reverse and regular abdominal breathing. Red Dragon Qigong is many thousands of years old, unlike the previously discussed methods of the 20th century. It is not simply a form of breathing and stretching backed by laboratory measurements of blood pressure, heart rate variability, and improved flexibility. With this practice, you can find all the core principles of energy generation and its application. With Red Dragon Qigong, you will also find a lifetime of study and reflection. I hope you enjoyed this overview. Thank you very much for your time, and welcome to the family.